how much of the driving experience is still really active
Hmm.
and how much of it people want to be active.
Welcome back to Car-Pinionated, our weekly show on cars, the car industry, and driving in general. I'm Doug Stewart. This is my friend Jeff Buchholz from Chicago. I am in beautiful Hartford County, and we're going to talk about the topic, are cars becoming software products, and is that a good or a bad thing? So, Jeff, um, your fleet there at Buchholz Central uh, does is not on the cutting edge of technology, and that's fine. Um, what are your thoughts on, cars that have more computing power than, the entire Apollo space program?
Isn't that something? I think we headed into this direction, I mean, well before the sort of modern electrification of cars, right? Like when you start seeing car companies presenting at CES, like
Hmm.
that's a sign that certainly in car companies or inside the sort of boardrooms at car makers, they certainly see them as being electronic products primarily, and there's a ton of electronics in cars. um, it it has reached a point now where a lot of the conversation around a car isn't necessarily, well, how fast does it go or how much mileage does it get? It's, can I pair my iPhone to it? And, is the thing going to yell at me if I change lanes? And increasingly, is it really safe for me to turn on my, driving assistance programs? I think the march of technology is going to continue, and I don't, whether it's a good or a bad thing is sort of immaterial because it's here. It's we can't hate it; it's inevitable, right? And I think I'm trying to kind of pinpoint when this probably started. It might have been sort of bubble era Japan when we started seeing like navigation systems and dashboards and radar cruise control and that kind of thing, and then sort of trickled down to uh, the development of the whole suite of driver assistance technologies, really, and 360-degree cameras where you can see sort of a bird's eye view of your car as you're, backing into a fire hydrant or something, and on and on. And one does wonder, how much of the driving experience is still really active
Hmm.
and how much of it people want to be active. I mean, I think that, there's a pretty sizable contingent of people out there who would, don't mind cars so much. They just, as soon as they can hit autopilot, why they're good.
Yeah.
And it's a really, it's a really I think one of the things that has come out of that, and the barn door's been, closed on this for a long time, is sort of the privacy and regulatory concerns
Yeah.
that are involved here, right? Like your car is recording lots of data about what you're doing in the car and how fast you're driving. Obviously, these don't help because we all pretty much have a GPS tracker on us at all times now.
Mhm.
At least a lot of us do. But that does get into some really having cars be software devices does create ethical questions at some point about about being surveilled and do I really want GM to know that I'm doing 80 miles per hour? It is the sort of thing that is inevitable, as I said, but I also think it opens up a lot of questions, and it's really hard to sort of put that kind of turn that back, right?
Mhm.
Like, the way that you turn it back is by actively driving a car that doesn't have a lot of that stuff.
Which I
You
don't think
know,
you can find anymore.
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. I mean, I just, I just parked not too long ago, I parked my 26-year-old Acura, and I exchanged it for a 2008 Explorer, which isn't that much of an upgrade, really. But I mean, but I also put a CarPlay radio in it. So I mean, I'm the problem, I guess. it's it. I suppose it's not all that surprising, given that there's a whole bunch of people who will wait in line for hours for the new iPhone.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine that that car companies are seeing that and go, okay, what people want is more technology and more,
Hmm.
more things to be upgraded, more things to, make that easier so that they can, do whatever while they're in their cars. You know, it's, for people who enjoy driving, I can understand why it's kind of disappointing and kind of feels like the experience is a little bit not what it should be. But again, this is kind of where we are, and I don't know that there's a way that it's going to, like I said, go back.
Yeah, and I think that, I think you have to accept the surveillance part of it, but I don't think you have to like it.
No, no.
And I think I applaud the groups that are going at and say, GM and saying, well, you can't sell that data. You can't sell,
Hmm.
whoever
Hmm.
lawsuits, have said, you got to have a cutoff line. I I so the Honda that I bought last year,
Hmm.
has Apple CarPlay in it, and this is my
Hmm.
first experience with it. And I like it. I like the maps
Yeah.
part of it.
Yep.
I like all that. But the moment that it sort of decides to, venture on its own journey, I like how can I, manage now? How can,
Hmm.
so when I had the Forester, at one point it was very cold weather, and I turned the knob to change from heat to defrost, or something like that, and something snapped in there, right? And but it still worked.
Yeah.
It wasn't ever blowing exactly where I wanted it, but there was air coming out of it. But
Right.
like,
Right. Right.
if this screen stops working in the Honda, I don't know.
Yeah.
Half of the things I can do with it, more than half of the things I can do
Yeah.
in the car, are done with.
There is,
Um,
and that does reach a kind of a ridiculous point where there are some cars where the glove box lock is actuated by a touch on the center stack on the touch screen, or I think on the I th and I've seen some cars where you have to use the touch screen to control what direction the air is blowing at.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what? We
yeah.
solved this, guys. And I see the rants about this on like the Autopian and stuff. With cars, like particularly Teslas, but there's, some Fords
Any one of
and,
them,
and
any one
GMs
of them.
with like the actuated door latches. You got to
Yeah,
press a button and the motor whirs and the door opens. And so it's like, well, what happens if I, for some reason, can't get the door open because I'm
yeah,
trapped or there's been a crash or something? It's like, folks, we solved door latches. We
right,
solved for that. We figured out how to make that
right,
work. Why are we making this more complicated?
right.
Like,
And and
are there people who want this?
was there some unknown call out there that we don't want to pull a lever, we
Yeah,
just want to push a button, and
yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
but you're right, the safety thing bothers me a great deal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um
It's wild, and there's not, and I don't know that. First of all, I don't know that Tesla has a really great answer for that. I mean, there are some
no.
cars that have like, oh, here's your manual override or whatever. It's behind a panel or something,
Mm.
but I don't. It's very silly, and it does. That's an extreme, and there's also the extreme, and this is on the GM cars, on the Ultium cars. It might be some of the other ones too, where they dropped um, Apple CarPlay integration and some of that because they bought their own sort of data telemetrics, whatever
Yeah.
program from Google. And there was some comment about somebody I think was talking in some interview I read where the guy at GM was like, well, it's the designer has this whole vision for the inside of the car, and then someone's going to get in and put in some foreign interface, and it just messes up everything. And to which I'm like, screw you, it's my car. I like how CarPlay looks. I like that it looks the same in every car I'm in.
Yeah, yeah.
That should
I,
be
I
that should be the standard, is whatever I want it to be,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And and that other thing about like being able to get in a car and just use it,
Mm-hmm.
goes farther and farther away. And I've
Mm-hmm.
said multiple times, I think my mother could get into a Mustang Mach-E, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
fairly simple. It's got
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has the little knob on the console anymore for the gear shift. I think it's something else now. That's my
Oh, okay.
understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But that same idea.
Mm-hmm.
And you're absolutely right. Like when I drove the Cybertruck for a day,
Mm-hmm.
um, I used the mechanical handle because
Mm.
that's what I felt comfortable with.
Sure.
And but there wasn't one in the back door.
Right.
You know, that's some, like you said, behind a panel and pull a little thing. Like, yeah, because when the car's taking on water, that's what I want to do is,
Yes.
go call up the PDF of the owner's manual on my smartphone and figure that out. Oh, anyway.
Thank you for calling Tesla. For faster service, press 1. If a trade is bearing down on your vehicle right now, press 2. Para estancia en
Exactly.
español, prima número siete. It's just kind of, it has reached, it is just, a lot of this is just really silly.
Yeah.
It's mostly car companies proving that they can do it.
Right. Right. It's like
Because,
this competition about who can take a simple process and make it more complex.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. We're going to take a quick break here, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Car-Pinionated. Um, so one of the things that I thought about here was, maybe we should have started this discussion off. Um, I think we need to define what a software-defined vehicle is for people.
Yes.
Um, and to me it means what used to be mechanical switchgear is now a line, couple X number of lines of code, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where you used to push a button and it sent an electronic signal to some motor, now
Mm-hmm.
or switch, and now it sends it to the computing device, which then changes it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if after having a car that did not have the electronics parts with the lane keeping assist and
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
the cruise control and stuff like that, I do like it, but it's a little bit of a learning curve to
Mm-hmm.
like. At first, I didn't know why the steering wheel was shaking so much.
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, it's because I'm taking, I haven't turned on my turn signal to take the
Right.
exit
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which it's like, I'm a big boy. I can make that decision about if I'm going there and I shouldn't be going there.
Mm-hmm.
So that part feels awkward. And then at some point, like initially when I got the car, there was some Honda Link or something like that that
Oh,
I
yeah.
that I signed up for. And then I was like, I don't know where that information is going, so I'm gonna,
Huh.
cut that off at
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
um
I think, when you look at sort of why this is happening, it is, first of all, weight's the enemy. So having a lot of this stuff run by computers and runs through lines of code is often lighter often takes up less weight and space than the mechanical controls that would be required. Also, given the where we are in late stage capitalism, it's often cheaper to source
Yeah.
those parts than it is to, source a mechanical part because usually, mechanical parts require a lot of, or more anyway, assembly, whereas, electronic components require, a lot of them are parts that require, not very much human involvement, as it turns out.
Hmm.
So, I mean, those are some of the factors that's involved. And if, you throw in some, whiz bang things like, oh my gosh, there are 3 screens in this Mercedes Benz, then, it's a selling feature, I suppose.
Netflix.
Yeah, right. Jeez.
Okay, so a question for you. Do you think over-the-air updates are a benefit, or are they just kind of a way for um, automakers to sell subscriptions?
I think they are a benefit, and I think they're a way for car makers to sell subscriptions. I was really glad to see that BMW backtracked a couple of years ago on their ridiculous idea of making heated seats a subscription option for their car.
Mhm.
I certainly understand the desire for a revenue stream that isn't directly involved with the making and selling of cars, but also, come on, it's BMW. Like, do they really need the money? Like, that's
Yeah,
just ridiculous.
right.
That's the
Yeah,
silliest thing ever.
right.
I mean, fine. You want me to pay 12.95 a month for Sirius XM? Okay,
Sure.
whatever. I can make that decision. But I mean, actual features on the car, no, no, I'm good.
That
Thank you.
that the that the technical bits are already there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And part of me feels like somebody was sitting there figuring a way how to get around it, you
Hmm.
know? And what did it, oh, they used to call it jailbreaking on the iPhone.
Yes, that's right.
I jailbroke my BMW. Yeah.
That'll show up in Craigslist ads and it'll be a selling point.
There was a law, a bill that was proposed in New York State that made it, that would have made it so that if a manufacturer put the mechanical equipment on a car or the equipment on a car, they couldn't then sell you a subscription to turn that on.
Hmm.
And I don't know the outcome of it, but that was, 6, 7 months ago. But I was like, yeah, go for it.
Yep.
I am there for it.
Hmm.
But you're right. I mean, like I don't mind paying for Apple Music. Like, great. I'll do that all day long because I get a
Yep.
continuing benefit from it, and I
Yes.
can't reach source that someplace else, right?
Hmm.
Because my car doesn't even have a CD player now. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Nor does mine.
And the other thing that I think about is like we get more and more divorced from the driving experience, and you touched upon this a little bit. That and we like driving. Some people like driving, and some people it's just a chore, and they'd rather
Yes.
full self-driving and
Yep.
supervised. And that and I don't know, does it maybe mean that at some point in the market there'll be these cars that you drive and enjoy and these cars that you don't, and does that end up being like a standard transmission is today?
Hmm.
I think it kind of does. I mean, I think we're just, the the car gets less and less of engagement, and that's really, the Honda is fine. It's
Sure.
perfectly fine. It's
Yeah.
not fun. I don't feel it's
Yeah.
fun.
Hmm. Yeah. I think you're right. I think there are certainly will be those households. I mean, just like a lot of households have, the, mom's taxi and then there's the fun car, right? So, yeah, I mean, I do think that, you set up a couple of different classes of cars where you have like particularly in the, the world of the future where, there's like tracks embedded in the road, electronic, tracking that the car will just, you can just guide the car to its destination, something like that. And then, if you're going to go out for ice cream or something, then everybody piles into the Wrangler or the Miata or whatever. And by everybody in the Miata, I mean you and one other person, because there isn't room for you and one other person in two large cones in the Miata. So I mean, but yeah, I mean that's probably where some of that thinking is going to go.
There is, and I'll plug it in here, a one of those 50s films about the future of the automobile from GM, right? And there's singing.
We gotta slow down, slow down.
There's a family of four who's in a car, and they're stuck in traffic, and they look ahead to what vehicles will be like in 1976. And it goes on to this magic highway where there's a guy in a tower, like, go ahead, put it on autopilot.
Yeah.
And the father sits back and starts I think he has a cigar or something, and they get ice cream out of the dashboard. Like,
I remember this. I've seen this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, talk about a rabbit hole. The whole GM Archives website, and God bless them for selling all that stuff off so that it could be digitized and put online. And Ford has a similar thing now, as well, with a lot of their archive stuff. I remember years ago, when I worked in Detroit, we were launching a new newscast, and I had an idea for like a kicker piece, and I called GM's PR department, and I remembered, and this is well before YouTube was anything, and I remembered seeing this old film that was produced, I think, for the 1939 World's Fair, if I'm not mistaken, and it was the Futureliner era situation, and it was sort of a film of it was essentially GM Design's vision of what Detroit would be in 1960.
Yeah.
And it was very similar. Here's a modern river city of 1960. I'm like, oh, modern river city. What could that be? And I remember somehow I moved heaven and earth. They got me the thing. They got me the clip of it, and I put it on our newscast that night. And it was super cool, and the newscast lasted a year and got canceled, and that's going to happen. But just all of that stuff, just sort of the idea, and all of those like dream cars of the 50s, the turbine powered cars with the crazy telephone dial steering wheel and joystick driving or whatever. Like it was a whole different time. Now that kind of software informed vehicle I could handle. Give me a Firebird 3. That'll, take that Nissan Altima. Like, give me one of those.
Yeah. All right. We're time to put the tray tables up and secure the cabin.
Got it.
It's been another episode of Car-Pinionated. Remember that you can look on YouTube and under Car-Pinionated and find our old episodes. And Glenn couldn't join us because he's doing funny stuff in New Jersey. And I honestly mean that. That's not, I'm not saying that weird. Anyway, it really is. Anyway, all right. We will see you next time.